My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask you for pardon for my sins and the grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Here in the UK, we have a very popular television programme. It's called A Great British Bake Off. The Great British Bake Off is popular, so popular that it's been played out in schools, in communities, that people want to echo what they see on this programme. Maybe it's reached other countries by now, but it's certainly a very British invention. So these various strangers, maybe 10 of them, begin the series together, and they bake in this tent in a field somewhere, a tent that's been set up with ovens and worktops. They each get a worktop and an oven, and they're given a challenge. And the challenge is to bake a particular piece of bread, maybe type of bread, maybe a cake, maybe some biscuits. It's a baking competition, so it's always along those lines. And then they have a set amount of time. So it's a similar idea to other kinds of programs. But this one really appeals to me. I love the idea of this program, and I love how it's become replicated by school children who have made it into their own competition. And so one of the key features of this program is that as you've made the challenge, as you've spent time baking the bread, for example, you then have to bring it to the judges. And one of the judges, she's actually just retired from the program, but she is a very famous chef in the British cooking world called Mary Berry. And Mary Berry, a very kind of softly spoken, gentle, older lady, is very polite. She's very delicate. She's very refined. But she also doesn't mince her words. And so the participants, the contestants, are really keen to impress her, and of course the other judges. And she's got some classic lines about the cakes that she eats. She knows what she likes. And I love how programs of this nature speak to a particular experience of the human experience, the human person. And it's something that probably we've experienced ourselves. And it's the risk of presenting what I've made, the risk of presenting myself. It's not just what I've made, it's because that bread, that cake, that biscuit kind of contains me a little bit. When I present something, it contains me, and I'm nervous as to how it will be received. It might be a singing competition. We might have memories of learning poetry or learning a piece of literature or presenting an essay or maybe a debate. I remember being in a debating society when I was in school, and to stand up, and I remember opening my mouth and wondering what was going to come out. When we get to the point of presenting, the adrenaline is high. We're not quite sure how it will be received. There's a risk involved. Jesus, it's nice to pray with this word today, presenting or presentation, because that's precisely the feast that we're celebrating. In the Mass of today, we'll hear that it's now 40 days since Christmas Day. 40 days, Jesus, since we celebrated your arrival before our eyes. You'd spent those first 9 months in the womb of your mother. You were known to her, you were known to Saint Joseph, in a sense, although you were still hidden from view. I've just been for a few days to Seoul in South Korea to prepare for the World Youth Day that will take place there next summer, 2027. And very curiously, in South Korea, the age of somebody works slightly differently. You're aged not from the day that you're born, but it includes the time you've spent in your mother's womb. So when you arrive into the world, you're already one. And I thought, what a beautiful pro-life way of aging somebody. Thank you, Lord, that you spent time in your mother's womb. Thank you that I did. Thank you that every one of us did. Thank you that that time is not lost, but is part of my earthly experience. How sad it is that the reality of the human person in the womb of his or her mother is so often misunderstood, so often denied. I loved how in South Korea, by the very age of a person, it recognizes the truth of their life in the womb of their mother. And you too, Jesus, lived there for 9 months and then were revealed to our eyes 40 days ago on Christmas Day. And I guess there are two movements that we recognize in these 40 days that have gone past, that we can recognize in ourselves too, and in the way we interact with you, Jesus, the way we hold you in our own hearts and the way we share you with others. And maybe these two movements are to allow ourselves to be found and to present ourselves to the other. These two movements. And so Mary and Joseph, we find them in the stable. We found them in the stable 40 days ago, and what a beautiful time it was over Christmas to meditate, to visit the crib. Maybe we have someone very young in our lives, maybe a younger brother or sister, maybe a small child. Maybe we went with them to the crib to point out the different characters, to invite them to dream who would they like to be. Maybe that was us. Jesus, it's lovely that we too can be children, but we can adopt this dreaming before the crib and to become one of the characters, as St. Josemaria liked to say very often, to become one of the characters in the crib. And we see there the shepherds who on Christmas night visited the crib, the first Christmas. They travelled through the hills to visit this child they'd heard about from the angels. We also, in the season of Christmas, hear about the arrival of the wise men, probably more like 2 years later, just the way that gospel is presented. It's joined on with the infancy narratives, joined on with the birth of Jesus, but probably happened a little while later. But we still see it as the arrival of visitors who know something about this child and want to discover for themselves more. There are those people in our lives, people who maybe see our faith, maybe understand something about our faith, but ask more. And I find these questions, these conversations very beautiful, that when someone asks more, they want to know more, they want to know something about my faith, they want to discover for themselves, perhaps, who Jesus is for them. These questions can lead to some very nice conversations. But then today we have the other side, the other movement, and it's presenting Jesus to the world. So for those first days of Jesus' life, Mary and Joseph have received guests, received those who come to Jesus themselves. But today the movement is more outwards. They bring you, Jesus, outwards to the temple, and there capture the attention of Simeon and of Anna, these two characters who've known about the arrival of the Messiah. Simeon can now die in peace, he says, because he's seen the promise of the Lord's salvation. Now my eyes have seen your salvation. Anna too, this lady who spends a lot of her time in the temple praying, she sees this child and speaks of him to anyone who will listen. These two hearts, now in relationship with Jesus, in relationship with the movement of God towards his people, this is only possible because Mary and Joseph present Jesus to them, present Jesus to the temple, present Jesus to the Lord. That part of my faith will be about receiving the visits, as it were, of others to ask me questions, But part of my faith must also be this apostolic outwards direction where I bring him. Jesus, I bring you to my friends. I bring it up in conversation sometimes to say, have you ever thought of knowing Jesus? Have you ever desired to know peace in that thing that you're struggling with? Have you ever desired to be forgiven, that thing that's very heavy for you right now? Have you ever wanted to be loved? I know one who loves me. Maybe you could accept him for yourself. This kind of conversation, when we trust someone very closely, when we're in a close relationship with our friend, these kind of conversations, they're very powerful. It's as if we get permission to have these conversations when we trust someone, when St. Josemaria would say, when there's friendship and confidence. In the context of this relationship, to present Jesus is really, really important and is a vital other movement in our relationship with him, that we pass you on, Jesus, to those around us by word, by deed, by invitation. Jesus, please give us an apostolic heart that would desire not only to allow others to find you in us, but that we would go out with you to them, to know, to be convinced in our own hearts what a difference you've made, what a gift you are to us, and how we long for that to be experienced by those around us. Mother Mary, this is a special day for you where you journeyed to the temple with your beloved Jesus Christ. May I too journey with him outwards to find those who are thirsting for the water of life he brings. I give you thanks, my God, for the good resolutions, affections and inspirations that you've communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help to put them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, St. Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.